So let's talk about this game. Honestly, and let me say this right quick. The Minnesota Timberwolves and Nuggets game 7 was just insane. I didn't post a video on it because I've honestly been looking at what is the reaction from people when it comes to this game. But I watched it live. I saw it on full. And I thought it was one of the best games that we could have gotten. First, I've been processing the game and I've been thinking and analyzing it for about 2 days now and seeing did the Timberwolves win. Because honestly, I don't believe that this game was any other game, right? It was a game that was so important, right? That it like no singular person, no singular analyst, I feel like could cover all of the intricacies that made this game beat. I feel like after, thinking about it so much and after actually putting my mind at work and basically saying like this is what I saw being presented, I feel like the biggest thing that won the Mavericks, not the Mavericks, I'm sorry, the Timberwolves this game, I mean, there were three different aspects. These aspects were, right, first, pace. The pace was controlled mostly by the Nuggets in the first half, and they were playing quick. They were playing a lot. Like in the first two quarters, the Nuggets had already scored around 48, 50 points. But then in the next, I don't know how much, like in the rest of the game, they only scored about 30 to 40 more points by the end of the game. And by the way, most of those points were already when the game was decided. They scored around 10 points when the game was decided. And this was something really cool to see from the Wolves. That the fact that they could regain the control of the pace, because if you let the Nuggets score, they're gonna kill you, and that's just the reality, And you would let Jamal Murray do his thing, you let Cat, not score, and they were letting originally the Timberwolves players score, but they were just focusing on playing good defense and scoring more than the other team. But I believe when the real shift came in for the entire game was in that third quarter. I was watching the third quarter and I saw a shift in two main things because the pace was something that shifted with what I'm going to talk about. And it was defense, right? And utilization slash lineups. For the Wolves, they used many different lineups. Obviously, Ant played most of the game, and we saw him shoulder most of the load. But we saw them sometimes only using Anthony Edwards as the main scorer. Sometimes Cat was on the bench because he had a lot of fouls. Sometimes it was Naz Reid who was on the court. And in the end, when you check the minutes for the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, what you will see is that every single Timberwolves starter, right, played at least 35 minutes. But you had three guys on the bench who played a substantial amount of minutes, and the way that they spaced them out was very important. The reason why I say this is because even though a guy like Anthony Edwards played for 44 minutes, in the Nuggets side, they all played 40 minutes except Michael Porter Jr. And off the bench, they had guys playing consistent minutes in a row. And these minutes were kind of trash minutes because they did not want to sub off of their stars. They did not rest their stars appropriately. And I feel like this is where Michael Malone had a big problem. When you went up that much, you put your other guys in and make sure that they actually have, a grip on what is happening during the game. I watched the entire game. I was very excited to watch it. And I think that these rotations were the second reason as to why, these people in the Timberwolves could stay grabbing putback dunks at the end of the fourth quarter, and the Nuggets players looked gassed. Jokic rested 1 minute in this game on the bench and halftime. But when you divide most of your time before the half, you have some of the guys in, you have some of the guys playing around. But then after the half, you do not let your guys rest. That is a thing. The third reason, as I said, is defense. I feel like the Timberwolves defense shifted in a big way when they touched the third quarter. After Denver took that big lead, the biggest adjustment was putting Anthony Edwards on Jamal Murray and doing this collective defense, which completely shifted the course of the game. Everyone was playing as hard as they could, and I mean this by far. Like every single Timberwolves player, and anyone who watched the game could say this, was playing their butt off. Every one of them. Naz Reid grabbing a ton of rebounds when he got in the fourth quarter, being a consistent hype man. In the end of the day, Naz Reid had 4 rebounds and 11 points. That is not as crazy when you look at it in the box score, but those 4 rebounds were very important rebounds, which came in moments of the game when they needed them. And for the other guys, the starters, Karl Anthony Towns was probably the best player in this entire game. Consistent offense from the first to the fourth quarter, put in the game-winning putback dunk, just had 12 rebounds, 2 assists, and 23 points. And even though, yes, he had 5 fouls, and Rudy Gobert did foul out, they both played really good defense, especially not fouling and making sure to get the steals. You had guys like Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who all, even though offensively some of them didn't do that great, right? Like Mike Conley. Mike Conley played well, but his best thing were those ridiculous threes that he was hitting, which was the one where he was like kind of fading away. And that was incredible. But in the end, that wasn't really what won them the game from Mike Conley. What won them the game from Mike Conley was the free throws he hit, the rebounds he took, and that ridiculous ball movement that he displayed, as he got 4 assists with 10 points and still had a plus 14, the highest on the court. A guy like Rudy Gobert had the game of his career. I believe he had the best game out of the Timberwolves when it comes to hustle. You are not going to see that in the box score, but he was forcing a lot of missed shots. He was forcing a lot of turnovers. And with the defense focusing so much on him not rolling, it made sure to create other opportunities for the Stars. And finally, what I do believe was a switch, which mattered a lot for this game and basically made them win. It was not apart from obviously the Nuggets being tired, and as I said, the Timberwolves controlling the pace, it was the perimeter defense. This was the biggest thing. The 3 things that I said are the biggest reasons are the minutes and how they divided them, the pace of play, especially in that second quarter, and then the absolute destruction on defense that the Timberwolves played. And I believe that the biggest defensive advantage that the Timberwolves ever had was putting Anthony Edwards on Jamal Murray. He got like 4 steals on Jamal, or at least that's what that felt like watching the game. He actually got 2. But he was just getting in the lane. And Anthony Edwards is a great example of how to win a game for your team without looking at the box score and without playing a substantial amount of offense. He had 2 of the biggest shots in this game, which were the sidestep 3, right, which I think was the shot that put the Timberwolves over. And then he had that big 3 in the corner to basically win them the game. And these 2 shots were the ones which really were the catalyst for them being able to come back. Before the third quarter, Anthony Edwards hit that 3. It put them between 1 point, and it made them great. He had a few other shots in the fourth quarter, and he scored most of them there. And he played the best defense I've seen anyone play on Jamal Murray in the playoffs, and it worked, and it won them the game. So that was great leadership by Jamal Murray. Well, not by Jamal Murray, I'm sorry, by Anthony Edwards.